Hey everyone, it's me, Andy,
And I'm Sean.
and this is the Commander's Brew.
This week, Ayli with Lurrus as a companion. So this deck, you'll recall we recently talked about the partners, not the partners, the
Companions,
companions,
yep.
and we sort of ranked them, and like Lurrus came out near the bottom.
Yeah,
So when I heard that, I was like, no way.
yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna see what can be done with Lurrus. Um, so we're doing a Lurrus companion deck. It's the one Orzhov Legendary Cat Nightmare 3/2. Each permanent in your deck has to be 2 CMC or less. It has lifelink, and the ability is during each of your turns you may cast one permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less, which is all of them, from your graveyard. And your commander has to also fit this, so I thought, why not Ayli, I forget her full name, Ayli, the Eternal Pilgrim. She's a 2 CMC core cleric, 2/3 with Death Touch, and you can pay 1 to sacrifice another creature, gain life equal to that creature's toughness, and you can pay 1 white black, sack another creature, exile any non-land permanent only if you have 10 or more life than your starting life total. For us, that means 50, unless you're doing hashtag 20 in 2020, and then that would be 30.
Right.
But so I tried to set it out. I put it to Discord. We put our heads together and we're like, can we do an Orzhov 2 CMC permanent deck? And let me tell you, I think we can do it.
Wow, I love it. I love a challenge, and you know what? It does not surprise me. After talking about the companions last week, I also kind of looked at them again and was like, man, Loris is breaking everything it's involved in, and I bet you any money that the commander deck you make with Loris is actually incredibly good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like just in generally speaking, everything's so cheap, so you're always doing stuff.
Yeah.
There's plenty of ways to protect Lurrus, to get Lurrus back, so you're not even that worried if Lurrus dies. Um,
Do you include less lands in a deck like this?
I included a few less lands. That's something I don't have a ton of experience with, so like I haven't had time to like test the deck
Mm-hmm.
a ton of times, but like it's definitely a little bit less.
Right.
So I just want to start with a couple of basics. Like we have access to a lot of good basics in the deck. For example, Wayfarer's Bauble. That's the 1 mana artifact. You pay 2, sack it, search for a basic, and put it directly into play tapped. That's ramp that we can recur. Costs a little bit more, but I mean, in a white-black deck, that's pretty decent. We've also got Knight of the White Orchid. That's the white human knight, 2/2 first strike, and when it enters the battlefield, if any opponent has more lands than we do, we get to tutor up a plains, put it into play untapped, and then shuffle your library.
Nice.
So that's a recursive way of keeping it rolling. I probably don't need to remind you that Ayli is a sack outlet herself, so like we can sack the knight, recast the knight if we need to. And then we've got access to a bunch of stuff like Seal of Cleansing. It's a 1 and a white enchantment. You sack it to destroy target artifact or enchantment, and we can cast one of these every turn. We can't do everything every turn. It would be really tempting. Like sometimes it feels like, ooh, I want to cast this every turn and this every turn. It's like you only get one every turn, but still, like we have access to everything we could possibly need. It's great.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds powerful to me.
Yeah, and then the skeleton of the deck, we basically just tried to brew up some sort of aristocrats deck, because
Okay, yeah.
the usual gang of aristocrats are like 2 or less. I'm talking Blood Artist. That's the 0/1 for 1 and a black. Another creature dies, target player loses 1, we gain 1. I'm talking Zulaport Cutthroat. It's 2 CMC. Whenever this or another creature we control dies, each opponent loses a life and we gain a life. I'm talking Cruel Celebrant from War of the Spark. 1/2 for black-white. Whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker, we don't have any planeswalkers, we
For sure.
control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, we gain a life. Like we've got all of those at 2 CMC. We're missing a couple, but we also can run some like sort of second string aristocrats. Do you want to take these second string fellas?
Yeah, totally. Corpse Knight does a pretty good impression of an aristocrat. It's the white-black 2/2 zombie knight. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses a life. Kind of a similar deal. Well, we also have Lampad of Death's Vigil. This one's recently from Theros, Beyond Death. 1 and a black for a 1/3. That's it's an enchantment creature. You can pay 1 generic and sack a creature, and each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So another kind of drain thing there. And then we have Suture Priest, 1 and a white for a 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain a life. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. Similar
It's great.
stuff.
Well, I mean, it's all similar stuff, and I must point out that Lamphead of Death's Vigil, that's the effect for sacking a creature that you pay for, but if you also have something like Zulapart Cutthroat, you also get that ability that triggers on top of that, so it's
nice,
a 2
yeah.
for 1. So like, there's a lot of targets, there's a lot of aristocratic things. We are not built to get Ayli above 10 like as a primary goal.
Right.
That can definitely happen, and if it does, awesome, but we're just here to recur that value and just drain everybody down to 0 this way.
Nice.
With access to do it every time. So I mean, that's kind of like the gist of how we're going to do this. I cannot wait to get to some of these neat moves.
Working on a
Neat
move.
So obviously it sucks to lose Lurrus and not to be able to do fun stuff, right? That's one of the first things you got to consider in deck building. So we've got cards like from Modern Horizons gave us Unearth. No, it didn't. That was Masters 25. I forget where it came out. But
No,
Unearth.
it's Modern Horizons.
Okay. Unearth, sorcery, 1 black, like just a single black mana. And then I just want to remind everyone, the sorceries can cost anything. Instant sorceries, it's just the permanents that have to be 2 or less.
Okay.
But this one happens to cost 1. Return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Guess what? That's everything, including Lurrus.
Wow.
And it has cycling 2, just in case you don't need it.
Wow. A single mana reanimate spell. Pretty sweet.
I mean, in this deck, you're only going to get a 1 mana advantage from it.
Sure,
but
yeah.
like, just keep this card in mind for other decks, because if you've got a lot of powerful 3 CMC cards, this is a pretty good effect for 1 mana.
Yeah, like it's not so much the value in mana that I'm thinking about, obviously, even though that's what makes certain reanimation spells really good. This one is just the castability of it, right? Like to be able to tack this on to the end of a turn where you've done a bunch of other moves is really nice. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Also in this vein, we have Suture Spirit. Suture Spirit's 1 and a white for a 1/1 spirit with flying, and it has pay 3 Orzhov hybrid. So any combination of white or black in those 3 to regenerate target creature. Regenerate is not a thing we see super often, just because it's not really printed anymore. They don't do regenerate. It's a very confusing mechanic. I remember when I first started playing, it got explained to me, but like it still wasn't clear. And regenerating, if you're new and you're not, you're not familiar with this mechanic, regenerate does a couple of different things. And Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong on these.
Sure.
So you tap the creature.
Uh-huh.
That's part of it. You remove it from any sort of combat it may be in. It doesn't have to be in combat, but if it is, you remove it from the combat. And it gets what's called a regeneration shield, meaning that if it were to die, that stuff that I just said is what happens to it. It doesn't instead of dying, it gets tapped and removed from any combat that it's in.
Yes.
So
and the counterintuitive part is you have to do it before it dies.
Yes.
But if you think about regenerating, like
Yes.
thematically, you should die first and then regenerate back to life. But that's not how it works.
Right, exactly. So, and it's I think the damage that is on it, like if that would kill it, it's basically instead of dying, tap it and remove it from any kind of combat it's in. Bam. That's what happens instead of dying. So you don't have to worry about any weird other stuff. And you can't regenerate if it's like if you put a what's it called, a -2/-2 ability.
Right. Because it's it's tough. If its toughness is below 0, you can't regenerate it.
Exactly.
0
It's kind
or
of a
less.
damage only based thing / a kill spell type of thing.
And it won't protect you twice. Like if something kills you, you can regenerate in response before the destruction happens and not be destroyed. But then if they destroy it again, then you need another regeneration shield.
Exactly. So yes, if you picture them as like these actual shields that are stopping the killing, that's the
Yeah.
easiest way to do it. So there's our little, probably pretty confusing primer on regenerate.
Sure.
So there you go.
I mean, yeah, and like so this deck, as you might imagine, often has a lot of mana left over that we're not using because everything costs 2. So having 3 open to regenerate Lurrus, if we want to protect Lurrus, is actually not that bad.
Nice.
Another way we can get Lurrus back is with Sevin's Reclamation. This is a sorcerer that costs 3, can cost as much as we want. 2 and a white, return target permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Could be a land if we want to ramp that way. But if you cast it from your graveyard, you get to copy it, and it has flashback 4 and a white. So over the lifetime of this spell, we're going to get Lurrus back. Well, I guess you get Lurrus back twice, because the second time you do it, you copy and you also get something cool back. Or you're just like, I got Lurrus already, I just want tons of cool stuff back.
Right. So we're also looking to, I mean, as you can imagine, in a deck using a creature that lets us cast things from our graveyard, we want to fill up that graveyard. So there's a couple of good ways we can do that. Golgari Thug is a nice classic. 1 and a black for a human warrior, a 1/1. When it dies, you put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So another way to kind of get Lurrus back if Lurrus is in our graveyard. But also, Golgari Thug has Dredge 4. So if we would draw a card, instead we can bring this card from our graveyard to our hand and mill 4 directly into the graveyard. So pretty strong ability. Dredge 4 is a lot. And I'm kind of surprised every time that I see Golgari Thug, because it's like, it doesn't, like, we always think, the two Dredge cards I always think of are obviously Stinkweed Imp and Golgari Grave Troll, which is, I think, the Dredge 6 one that gets really big. But Golgari Thug is, like, roughly as good as those cards almost, you know? They're right up there.
Yeah, I mean, it does tons in this deck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy to see it was 2 CMC.
Great card.
And we're running a 4 CMC sorcery in Dread Return. The sorcery returns target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, probably Lurrus. It also has flashback to sacrifice 3 creatures. So if we mill this thing, no problem. There's very often times where we want to sacrifice 3 creatures to bring Lurrus back, and then we can use Lurrus to cast one of those 3 creatures we just sacrificed, if need be.
Amazing. I love this card in these types of decks, because, yeah, the fact that you can mill it and then you're just so happy about it because it doesn't cost any mana to actually cast it for flashback. So good.
Yeah.
And then we also have Return to the Ranks. It's an X white spell. So technically, I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be. It's a sorcery, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, it has Convoke, and you can return X target creature cards with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this just lets you hit so many creatures. It's so great. Convoking with all of our little guys, targeting a bunch of stuff in your graveyard. Like, this card is made for this deck. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, we can't get Lurrus back with this, but we've got other ways that it's worth it to get all of your aristocrats plus a bunch of sack fodder dummies, a couple of sack outlets, and just be like, I think I can do 40 to the table right here.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so we're gonna take a little left turn here. Instead of just give you cards that are potential neat moves, we're gonna like just play out some actual neat moves.
Oh, I love it.
With some cards. So here's a neat move that came up a bunch. Remember Lamphead of Death's Vigil was an enchantment creature?
Yes.
Remember how there was that enchantment that you could sacrifice to destroy an artifact or Seal of Cleansing? Yeah. Lots of stuff like that. So we're running Restoration Specialist, 1 and a white for a Dwarf Artificer, 2/1. White, no taps, so you can do this as soon as Restoration Specialist pops in. Sacrifice Restoration Specialist, maybe get a couple of Aristocrat triggers going. Return up to 1 target artifact card and up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So we're going to get a nice one that I like to do. I like to use the enchantment to get back Kaya's Ghost Form. That's a single black for an aura. Enchant creature or planeswalker you control. Don't have any planeswalkers, has to be a creature.
Yeah.
When enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. That's for Lurrus.
This is an underrated card.
This is what makes Lurrus great in Standard right now. But yeah, totally. But this on Lurrus means if Lurrus ever dies, Lurrus comes back, but Kaya's Ghost Form's in the graveyard. but this Lurrus is a new instance of Lurrus, so we get to cast Kaya's Ghost Form back onto Lurrus.
Oh my god!
from the
Oh my
graveyard.
god! I love it. This is
Right.
great.
So I love it when. So I'm happy to spend Kaya's Ghost Form early on a creature I'm planning on sacking to get it back with Restoration Specialist. And the artifact I like getting back the most is Executioner's Capsule. Single black for an artifact, 1 and a black, tap, sacrifice the capsule, destroy a target non-black creature. Again, obviously there's some decks where this doesn't do a lot against because there's too many black creatures, but this always has targets. And if it doesn't, you leave it in the graveyard.
Yeah, I think it's from this point, it's pretty clear we were wrong putting Lurrus so low on our list last time. Yeah. You know, it wasn't so much that the list was about like what's good and what's bad. We talked about the viability, and it's like I wonder how many of these types of how many decks can Lurrus be the companion of.
Well, that's the thing.
I wonder.
You're
Anyways,
restricted on commanders.
This is one that's so good.
Well, and I'll take this time to say, the Discord gang and I, we put out so many viable 2-drops that had useful effects. Mm-hmm. We could have gone heavier artifacts. We could have gone heavier extort. There's a lot of flavors that this deck can come in.
Yeah.
This is the flavor. We're kind of presenting the most general one. You can kind of adjust to taste as you see fit.
Interesting.
So Andy, why don't you take this next neat move package here?
Right. So this next neat move package starts off with Priest of the Forgotten Gods. This is a big one in standard, 1 and a black for a 1/2 human cleric. She taps and you sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature, and you add black and draw a card. So you get up mana and a card, and everyone goes down a creature and loses 2 life. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? So we're sacking any 2 creatures to do this type of thing. Now take a look at this, though. Now we've also running Victimize, 2 and a black for a sorcery. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. So you're getting the 2 creature cards back that you just sacrificed with Priest of the Forgotten Gods. And then we also have Hidden Stockpile, though. White-black for an enchantment that has a revolt trigger. So at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. And you can also pay 1 to sacrifice a creature to scry 1. So altogether, this adds up to sacrificing 2 creatures, making everyone sack a creature, going up a card, gaining 2 black mana, so that you can cast Victimize, where you choose 2 creature cards in your graveyard, get them back, you're sacrificing another creature to do it, and then Hidden Stockpile, getting us back 1 of the creatures. So, are we not equal on creatures this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've traded the one that goes for Victimize for this servo.
Yes.
As the Hidden Stockpile.
That's right. Yeah. And then
that's only we might not we might sack 2 dummy creatures and get back 2 good ones, right?
Exactly,
Victimize doesn't have to do that. That's just a very neat move that I like.
I love this fairly intricate yet
it just piles up with Lurrus. You're just your graveyard feels like, oh, what do I need to make this deck better in this situation right now? Oh, how about this enchantment, or how about this creature, or you just get whatever you need at the time. It's great.
I love that Lurrus is so available to us, so that way we're always ready to if they take out the Priest of Forgotten Gods, no problem, we'll just recast it. They take out the Hidden Stockpile, we'll just recast it, no problem. Incredible.
Problem.
That the thing that the Kaya's Ghost Form is so good because you get it right back, and obviously you can cast it again, but it also stops exiling. I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
They can exile other things, but if you have that card, they're not exiling the creature. They're never going to exile Lurrus. It's nuts.
Yeah, they got to team up, and somehow someone has to remove Kaya's Ghost Form first.
Yeah.
And then exile Lurrus. But listen, we got so many sack outlets that you're not going to be able to exile Lurrus.
They're going to have to exile the graveyard is what they're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just want to point that out because that protects this sort of combo really crazy.
Yeah, how about this neat move? What if we end up, we're doing a lot of sacking. We got a lot of 1/2s and things like that. Slaughter the Strong. 1 white for a sorcery. Each player chooses any number of creatures he or she controls with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices everything else. So very often we don't care about losing a couple of 1/1s. We'll take those. We'll get a bunch of aristocrat triggers. A lot of opponents will have to sack everything. If they have nothing that's power 4 or less, they have to lose everything. They will often keep a couple of creatures, maybe just one. And then what we're going to do, we're going to swing in with our Animate Dead from our hand or from the graveyard and enchant the best creature that died. We're going to take their best thing and now it's ours. It's like, I don't need the big creatures. I'll just animate the big creatures after I kill them. Animate Dead is a convoluted enchantment that has to enchant a creature in a graveyard. It has -1/-0, and if the enchantment or the creature dies, they all go back to the graveyard.
Yeah, just a real classic here, and a real powerful one because it's a creature in any graveyard. It doesn't have to be your own, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The next one here starts off with Altar of Dementia. 2 mana for the artifact. Sack a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of their library into their graveyard. I'm guessing we're probably going to mill ourselves a lot in this deck just because
every time
we need it full. We do that a little bit, and then we've got Immortal Servitude, which is X, and then 3 Orzhov Hybrid. For a sorcery that says return each creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. So 5 mana to return all of your 2-drops back to the battlefield.
Which is basically all of them.
Right?
Yeah.
Or 4 mana to hit all your 1-drops. I'm sure there's a few of those in here. And then we also... so this is basically sack your whole board, mill yourself for however much it is, and then just Immortal Servitude them all back, plus the ones you milled into your graveyard, and just keep it rolling, right? Like, unreal. I love it.
Yeah. This deck, you mentioned really earlier, this deck is vulnerable to other people killing the graveyard, but we are pretty good at keeping our graveyard empty as we go. So like just emptying our graveyard like isn't that bad because we're not far from just getting way more gas anyway from going for it.
There's certain decks that when they have their stuff going, and they have the engine rolling where there's a way to get stuff in your graveyard or there's a way to sacrifice things, whatever, like you can exile their graveyard if it's fully stocked even, and then just like next turn they just do something where they mill a bunch or whatever it is, and like you were just a speed bump. Your Torbot's Crypt was simply a speed bump, and now they're back in it again. I've had that happen many times with graveyard decks where it's like sometimes it gets frustrating putting graveyard hate in your deck, and then watching it basically do nothing sometimes because the stuff that they're doing is just too good. Like if you have, a Altar of Dementia and a couple creatures on the board, like exiling the graveyard, you got to pick the right time to do it. And sometimes there just isn't a totally optimal time to do it. So it's tough. It's tough sometimes. And these decks are resilient in that way. So yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you have a Leyline of the Void so nothing can ever go to the graveyard, if it just gets exiled instead, any of those replacement effects where the graveyard is no longer part of the game, then this whole deck collapses and does literally nothing.
Yes, so. Exactly. And we've had vlog topics on that where it's like, how do we feel about those cards in Commander? And, the more competitive you get, the I think the easier the choice is to run those cards. So anyways.
Yeah.
Figure that one out for yourself amongst your own group because it's probably different for everyone.
So I mean, that was just like a general sense of some of the neat moves, as you can imagine, right? Like as we put this together, I mentioned like we've got some artifacts, but we could go heavier artifacts and more things that care about artifacts. We could go heavier extort as our mana sink, and just as we're casting these 2 and 1 drops, just paying extra mana on top of it to get more drains. I bet you that way would keep our life total much higher so that Ayli can start exiling non-token permanents, all non-land permanents all over the place. Like, again, that's not something we focus on. Like, Ayli is kind of just a body in this deck where we're like, I need another creature. There's one in the command zone. Great. Like, let's go nuts. Or it's a sack outlet right now. I'll take it. We'll happily let Ayli go to the graveyard and come back out and go back in and come back out.
True, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Were there any surprise or discoveries with this deck?
Yes. Yet again, another Modern Horizons new card that is like so useful, but I don't think about it much. Recruit the Worthy. I mentioned mana sinks are something this deck needed. This is a perfect one. It's a single white mana for an instant. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. but it also has buyback 3. So if we got 4 mana open, we can just make 1/1s. It's kind of like having one of those lands that lets you pay 4 to make a little soldier, but it just sits in our hand and we do this as much as we can afford.
It's like the fair version of Sprout Swarm.
Yes.
The green card that has
the Convoke.
Same thing, but it has Convoke, which is like after a while that
Correct.
card is just free to buy back, which
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
That I as we've said on the show many times, like we kind of skipped over Modern Horizons when it came out in a lot of ways, and so every time I see a card that's good for Commander, I'm always impressed, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see that. Here's a common from Modern Horizons that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Who helped out with this one?
Oh man, Andy, the Discord is popping off. I'm seeing some new faces in there as well,
That's
like
nice.
names have not brewed with us before. I'm just gonna do a quick zip through these. Mr. Big Bents, Sean, not me, another Sean, Clockwork 12, Home Doggy, Shaftman 2001, Jamon, Oslo Wellington 3, but I think that means Oslo Wellington the Third. That's what I'd like to call you.
Like that name.
Mondo, Dinesh, Brave Sir Robin, Lol What, Papadio, Chifi, Max Volume, Neil G, Nosrak 2. It's a lot. It's a lot of people. I
That's
might have
awesome.
missed someone because there's so many people. Like someone was like, I stepped away for a while and there's 100 new messages. Like,
Yeah, that's how it happens sometimes.
We're flinging card ideas back and forth. It's
I love
great.
it. Really great.
Yeah.
Well, we've done the Discord shoutouts and the surprise discoveries. That means it's time for the budget report.
Two beeps. For the 2 CMC, anything that costs more than $2 is out. Anything that is less than $2 is free.
That's also an interesting deck building restriction that you could bring.
Companions with price restrictions.
Lurrus specifically, like
yeah,
$2 or less. That's actually a fun challenge.
Yeah.
So what did this one come out to?
So, I mean, we'll get to it in a second, but the low is $70 and the market is $135. If you go to TCGplayer and put this deck in, you can find the link in the show notes. Click through that link to buy us any cards, and we get a little slice of that. No surprise, the most expensive card is Lurrus, who's $20 right now, because companions are dominating everything.
Yeah.
Lurrus is in very high demand. $20 at the time of this recording. It could be going up still. There's a world where maybe they ban companions in some of these formats, because truly the companions have been shattering everyone's expectations.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I think they're good, but they're like, if you have a companion in draft, your win rate goes up 10%. And they're dominating villages that these decks, and maybe the meta will correct and they'll go back down. So I'm hoping that Lurrus will come down in price one way or another.
From the sounds of it, I think the most likely banning, from what I've heard and seen, is Lurrus not in Vintage, I think it's Legacy? Whatever it's in, I can't remember. It is Lurrus, though. Lurrus seems to be causing the most problems amongst all the different companions. In one of those older formats, anyways. So that's at least kind of a bright future, because that will probably affect the price a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, me too. I mean, sure. You know what? Ban them all. Let's do it. Who cares? Ban them all in those competitive formats. Give them to Commander. I'll take them. I don't have a problem with these things in Commander.
Yeah.
Whatever. One card extra. We have a Commander. We have this all the time.
That's what we do.
I love it. Okay. Lurrus at $20. That's a lot. But hopefully that'll come down at some point soon. We also have Retrofitter Foundry. A card that spiked up there for a bit and seems to maybe be settling down. I know this one was getting played in, I think, Vintage also.
Yeah.
The 1 mana artifact, pay 3 to untap it, pay 2 to tap it, create a 1/1 servo, pay 1 and tap it to sacrifice a servo and create a 1/1 colorless Thopter, and then you can tap and sacrifice a Thopter to create a 4/4 construct. So, and they're all artifact creature tokens.
This is a great mana sink. The deck needs mana sinks, as I mentioned. This is a great one. It makes creatures. It helps us sacrifice things. But, it comes in at about $8. That's kind of the average price for this thing. So, I mean, we can probably cut it. We can find other mana sinks.
Do you want Ornithopter in this deck?
I don't think so, because I mean, paying for a creature is not the problem. So like, I can only cast one from the
Yeah.
graveyard every turn. So like, I won't be spending it on an Ornithopter.
But sometimes, and like, don't get me wrong, I'm not some major Ornithopter fan, but sometimes uh, you do just kind of need the other body on the battlefield to like sacrifice. But I guess mana is the mana restrictions are quite low. But I mean, I'm just thinking like if there ever was a deck that wanted an Ornithopter in Commander, like this might be the one.
It's tight. Like this deck is like, this is a deck where again, there's so many flavors of it. I kind of wanted 200 card slots. I could have done.
Yeah.
I could have fit in way more cards.
If you ever get Retrofitter Foundry and Ornithopter, though, that's a sweet combo, especially with Lurrus, right? Like,
Yeah,
you're just making
no
4/4s
doubt.
for free. Like, that's nice.
It's true. It's true. That is a very good combo. I mean, that might be worth considering a few Thopter options. There's too many options. There's too many options.
A lot of options here.
Is there
you're
a
right.
white CMC creature that makes Thopters? That little Thopter dude, or does he cost more than
Oh,
two?
I don't know his CMC, but I know there is a guy from Kaladesh, right? That makes
Yes.
Thopters, I believe. Or maybe, does he make servos? Maybe he makes, I don't know. He does something.
I thought
yeah.
he made Thopters. Master Trinketeer costs 3.
Ooh. Burn.
And he makes servos.
So he does make servos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wow.
That makes sense. Well,
Yeah,
anyways, you know, you're right. Like I'm just sitting here and seeing it. Like I'm just seeing the options now pile up. It's kind of a bummer though that if you run Lurrus as your companion, your commander must also be 2 CMC, right, or less.
Right.
So you can't have a 3-color deck.
No.
Because I don't think there are any even like. This guy costs a black and a white, and then like there's a blue and is activated, and that's legendary.
I haven't found one. No, I don't think there exists a 2 CMC or less with a couple of colors.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, if we could get Alicia, like Alicia would be so good as a commander for a Lurrus deck, but Alicia's 3 CMC. But you get those 3 colors, right? Like it's just, we're so close. We're so close.
Interesting. Well, you know, I mean, it still seems pretty good just with the black and the white there. That's pretty sweet.
Pretty good.
What about favorite cards? Our favorites coming out of this one.
We missed a third most.
Oh, we did.
You're
right. We did.
Knight of the White Orchid is $5.
Oh, and Retrofitter Foundry, by the way, is $8. We didn't say that.
Yeah.
Knight of the White Orchid, $5. Yeah. I mean,
it's white ramp.
Yeah, white ramp's tough to come by. And there's there's a few new cards that came out with the new commander set, or that are coming out, I should say, in the new commander set that are also kind of act as white ramp, and those are also expensive right now. But the fact that they exist, I think bodes well for cards like Knight of the White Orchid, and its price, because now Knight of the White Orchid is not the only option for this, you know?
Yes.
You're going to be running that bird that does it, those guys where you can play lands off the top and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
well, hopefully that'll also affect the prices positively.
Cartographer's Hawk
That's
is
it's like $10,
is
right?
a 2 CMC.
It's like $10 right now.
Well, it says 7 on Scryfall. It's come down a bit.
I just put it in the deck that we're going to record next, so I've been looking at it for a bit. Anyways, now let's talk about our favorite cards.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about Command the Dreadhorde, which is it truly is one of my favorite commander cards. I'm really adjusting. I'm really like reevaluating what my favorite colors in Magic are, because so many of them are black. I've always pictured I've always pictured myself as more of a Simic guy, but am I more Golgari? Like, am I more of a green-black player? I kind of think I might be.
You might be.
I might be. Oh man, yeah, I always thought I was like a Bant. I'm like a Bant person. I'm Bant. I love the green, blue, white. I think I'm definitely more Sultai these days. I don't know what it is. I'm loving these black cards though. Command the Dreadhorde, 4 black, sorcery. Choose any number of target creature and or planeswalker cards in graveyards. Command the Dreadhorde deals damage to you equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards and put them onto the battlefield under your control. So, you know, we've got these aristocrats. We're gaining all kinds of life with the sacrifice abilities and Ayli and all this type of stuff. So, you know, using a bit of that life to bring back 4 or 5 2-drops from our graveyard is not going to be a big problem. So I love Command the Dreadhorde in these decks. It's just so good, so good. Bringing back this kind of works out to be like, what's that called? What's the new ultimatum? The Eerie Ultimatum, except that you spend a little life, but you know it's easy on the mana that way. Anyways, love Command the Dreadhorde.
And like, like while we're at it, give me your Ilharg, right? Or maybe that's not even the best choice, but like, give me something great from
That's
your
true.
graveyard
I always forget
while I'm here.
Yeah, I always forget you can get it from other people's graveyards too.
Yeah, you got a cool Chandra down there. I'll take that. I'll take that too.
This is the thing I also love about Command the Dreadhorde. It's perfectly fine if you just grab like two things. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to grab your Planeswalker and I'm going to grab this other big creature. Yeah, I'm going to take like 7 or 8 damage, but that I paid 6 mana for these two things that cost, way more than that. Command the Dreadhorde, really solid. Love it.
Yeah. My fave card, it's an X spell.
Surprise,
It's
surprise.
Wake the Dead. Wake the Dead, X black instant. Cast it only during combat on an opponent's turn. Return X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield and sack them at the beginning of the next end step. This is a favorite of mine because it brings things back from the graveyard at instant speed. Has to be on your opponent's turn in combat though. But then they get sacrificed again. They don't exile. So many cards like this make you exile them afterwards. Don't care about that. Get away from this deck exile effects. I want them back in the graveyard. And the fact that we're going to bring back a few creatures. We're going to block with them. Some of them have death touch, so we're going to kill some creatures in combat if they're coming in with us. And we're going to get a ton of aristocrat triggers while we do it. This could be a game ender. This could be a card that wins us the game.
I've been tinkering with this card a lot. I've put this in a lot of different graveyard decks that I have. I still have yet to draw it. Still have yet to play it. But it's in there, and I can't wait for the day that I get to do it because I think this card's really good.
Yeah.
Especially, this deck is perfect for it. I think this card's great. Wake the Dead. It's a little like living, what's it called? Living Death, right?
I don't remember.
It's got the feeling of Living Death without the swapping the graveyards, and obviously you don't get them.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Living Death. Anyways, you don't get them permanently, obviously, but like a lot of times you just want to sacrifice them anyways for various effects. So Wake the Dead's great. Love it. Well, I think it's safe to say that Lurrus is a powerful companion in every format.
I mean, apparently, yes.
Yeah, even with the restriction, I think you're more than happy to put a deck like this together and live by those restrictions. No problem at all.
Yeah.
Great stuff. That's it. There you go.
That's
the
deck.
deck.
Done.
That's the
Episode
deck.
done.
The deck's done.
Thanks for
Episode
listening,
done.
everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, if you're in Canada, hit up Wizard Tower, wizardtower.com. Use our coupon code, and you can get a little slice off ordering your singles to Canada. And outside of Canada, you can always check out our TCGplayer affiliate link, which is in the YouTube video. It is below what you're watching right now. It's otherwise in the audio show. It's in our show notes. You can find it there. Click through. That's also the link for the deck list. Everyone who's ever asking for a deck list of anything you're watching, you can, the TCG link will give you that deck list. So check that one out. Guys, thanks for watching for another week. We will be back next week with another one here from Commander's Brew. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCGplayer affiliate link below.
That helps us out too. And for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.